Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's next session on the future of sBTC, where we'll dive a little deeper into the technical evolution and long-term roadmap for programmable Bitcoin. As you know, I'm Andre Serrano. I'm joined here by my colleagues Adriano and Alex Miller. So welcome, guys. So I guess to kick things off, since the launch of sBTC, we've seen incredible momentum across the ecosystem that have really started to gather some real world feedback around the protocol. So today we're going to unpack a little bit about what we've learned so far, what's coming next, and what you all should expect about the future of sBTC. So with that said, Alex, Adriano, let's maybe start with some high-level lessons. What has been the feedback since we launched sBTC? What has stood out to you over the past few months? And let's maybe start with Alex, and then we'll go to Adriano.
Yeah, it's been really exciting to see. Obviously, I think folks, it's been pretty good reception overall. We're still obviously kind of in the early days of it with the cap in place. So number one is obviously I've seen a lot of people who want to see the cap get lifted, and I know that's a progression one there too. I'm glad we're rolling out the way we are, but I also totally get why builders and users are excited for that. I think the other big thing we've heard is people who really want ways to like self-custody the underlying Bitcoin, or just different ways where they don't have to trust kind of any third parties to it. I think that makes a lot of sense for me. And one of the design principles when I was in some of like the community working meetings that were coming up around how to design sBTC is one of the goals was always what is the most like trust minimized way that we can do it, right? And this just this fundamental idea that sBTC should be the form of programmable Bitcoin that looks and feels the most like regular Bitcoin, or like unprogrammable L1 Bitcoin. And so that's been kind of coded in into from day one of like the research that we're doing of trying to figure that out and how to go about it. And so I've been excited to see some of the discussions that have been coming around that. And I know there will be more for folks to see on that soon, but I think that's been the biggest takeaway for me from it.
So then you, Adriano.
So I don't want to repeat what Alex said here, but I guess one very important point here is that as builders of products, right? I think SBTC V1, the one that is out there, has shown us that there's an incredible appetite for people to do more with their Bitcoin. So I guess to me that's the biggest lesson learned. Everything around it, every next step is about minimizing friction and improving UX. That has a different set of meanings depending who you talk to, right? So my job, your job, Andre, as head of product, is to distill those feedback into something that is actionable and that we can turn into an even better product, right? And so that's what I'm excited about. That's what we're gonna do, and that's what I look forward.
Yeah, I think those are both really well said. Alex, to your point, just want to call out there because I also have heard the feedback about wanting to get the cap lifted, wanting to get withdrawals done, and that is on the roadmap over the next 60 to 90 days. I think that is the plan is to activate withdrawals and get more Bitcoin into the protocol. So certainly top of mind there. But when we start to look out longer term, what are some of the top upgrades from your perspective? What are you most excited about on the long-term roadmap for sBTC, Alex?
Yeah. So I think there's both like the sBTC roadmap itself, which I know obviously you're doing a lot of work on, but also just thinking about how we integrate it more deeply and more generally across the ecosystem. So at Hero, we've been doing a ton of work on the Explorer. And one of the things like we're thinking about there is how do we elevate sBTC into more of like a first class citizen alongside STX on it. So, we've obviously got lots of existing fungible tokens on the network. Right now, SBTC shows up as kind of like just another fungible token. But it needs to not. I think it needs to be higher level, right? Stacks is all about making Bitcoin programmable. And in a lot of ways, SBTC is special and different than the other tokens out there. So I think as we work on the Explorer redesign, you're just going to see it elevated a lot there and look and function a lot like STX on it. And I think similarly, just I know talking to like some of the wallet teams out there and things, they're thinking about similar things. Is how do we make that? How do we just make it look and feel more like just Bitcoin and using Bitcoin faster and cheaper and easier, as opposed to using like an ERC20 or some other kind of token like that.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm looking forward to there is more fee abstraction. So basically making it possible for users to pay their gas fees with sBTC, and then under the hood, it swaps to STX. I feel like that could remove some of the complexity and some of the friction that that both of you have really been talking
Yeah,
about.
absolutely.
Yeah, Adriano, anything to add on that about what's exciting you on the SBTC roadmap?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm very excited to see the protocol out there in the wild, right? We have been giving it this rolled out release, which has worked great. But now it's time to open withdrawals, so giving it the last leg, allowing people to go the full journey in and out, and then eventually lift the deposit cap as well. What I love about it is that this is going to open a whole new set of use cases, right? Because once there's no cap, you have a lot more flexibility in what kind of DeFi applications you can build. You have a lot more abstractions that you can enable. And the market, as I call it, is already doing its thing, right? So right now you can actually do OTC swaps in and out of sBTC, even outside of the usual bridge, which is something that I love, right? It's one of the use cases which sBTC enables. And then, yeah, if we want to talk mid to long term, there are a lot of things that excite me, which boil down to better decentralization and better custody, right? To make it very simple, right now, when you're bridging in, you're transferring your assets to a set of signers, which are decentralized and trusted, right? But maybe we can do better. Maybe it doesn't have to necessarily be that way. We are evaluating a lot of options, but that's something that's top of mind. Also because it's going to make operational complexity of the system a lot better.
Right. Sounds like a little bit of foreshadowing there, Adriano. Sounds like there's something that you're not fully saying, but it sounds exciting. Um, Alex, you talked a little bit about the need for the user experience to feel native across DeFi applications. I'm curious to get your perspective. What else can we be doing there? What needs to happen that can really just improve that experience?
Yeah. So, like I said, I think one of the things I've thought about is, at the simplest, I guess at the simplest level, like right now, if you look on the Explorer at like an sBTC send, it's a contract call because that is literally what it is. But there's no reason we can't abstract that so you just like see how much sBTC was sent the same way you would with STX. The fee abstraction thing that, or fee translation, you could call it, is that I think there's also a thing there where letting users pay for sBTC in sBTC transactions using sBTC while actually doing a swap on the back end for it is really good for like just the long-term viability of stacks. It means, it gives us one way, and I think this is one thing I've been part of a lot of discussions of is how do we make sure that every BTC that comes into the stacks network accrues value to the STX network itself and to the builders and people participating in it. And I think one really good way to do that is, yeah, you can say every time, cool, you can use sBTC for transactions, but we're actually going to charge you like higher gas fees for that, or we're going to charge you a fee to silently swap on the back end sBTC into STX, which I think is a double win, right? It's a much better user experience for those who don't want to have STX as the gas asset, but it still means that you're having to use STX for the gas asset, and actually the existing community is benefiting more from it because obviously, it's you're getting basically a cheaper gas fee if you're using the STX and you're creating the reason for that transaction to be happening on it. So I think that's a really big thing that we can be doing. Like I said, and then I think really driving around payments with it. Obviously, we've seen a lot of folks try different things on making it easy to create Venmo using BTC. but none of them have been very good on it, right? There's a lot of liquidity issues and things around that. And one of the really big advantages with sBTC is that it is just one big network, right? You don't have like these separate groups where you have to be thinking about liquidity there. It's all just in one big pot and can send across the same way that you have with native L1 Bitcoin. So I think the opportunity there is really big. And again, it just gives a way to really bring people into the ecosystem on it. And then the
Yeah.
final really big priority, and again, I know there's a lot of discussions going on this area with folks, and I think we'll probably see more of it, is getting exchanges to adopt sBTC as like a direct withdrawal mechanism, right? So you can go buy Bitcoin at an exchange, and then the same way that like if you go to Coinbase right now and want to withdraw USDC, right, you can just pick what network you want to withdraw it onto. I want to see the same thing with sBTC. Or sorry, right, I should say with sBTC supporting the L2 withdrawals out of exchange. So you buy the Bitcoin, you say, hey, I want to withdraw it on this, and it's, hey, cheaper and faster if you withdraw it to the L2 than the L1.
Yeah, I really like that. And I think one of the points that you touched on is this idea that as Bitcoin TVL on the network grows, as activity grows, that should ideally accrue value to the success of the network. And so the easier we make it for people to pay transaction fees that are generating value for STX, it can really help to accrue this flywheel where increased activity that directly translates into the success of the network. So really looking forward to that as well.
Absolutely critical.
Agreed. So Adriano, coming over to you. So trying to paint a picture, sBTC 1 year from now, what does success look like?
Wonderful. So let's put our seatbelts on and let's start dreaming. I think when I think about it, sBTC is the de facto way to use Bitcoin, right? So you use it for payments, you use it for DeFi. It's entirely frictionless to use it. And, maybe if we do things right, you don't even know that you're using it on stacks, right? You don't need to use STX to pay for fees, even though you are using them, you're using it under the hood. You can onboard by as simply as having Bitcoin on the L1. You're going to onboard, swap it for sBTC, and then use it directly for doing whatever you need. We process maybe thousands of transactions per day, right? And those transactions serve a diverse set of users, from those that have very simple needs, they maybe just want to pay for coffee, to those that instead they are sophisticated and they want to implement more complex DeFi strategies. And lastly, yeah, maybe Alex hinted to it. If we do things right, you might find sBTC everywhere, right? So you will know where it belongs, on which chain, and on stacks it's gonna have unique features. But maybe you can look around and you can find it also on other L2.
Yeah, meeting users where they are. Okay, gentlemen, I think we're out of time, but it's been a great chat. Thank you for the discussion.
Yep. Thanks
Till
for
next
having us.
time.
Thank you.